Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And something very interesting was announced yesterday. Right after we did the video talking about how Hasbro cut 1,100 jobs and they're shutting down one of their offices. I mean, we're talking like 20% of their staff gone. And they cut another 17% before that. So we're talking like 30 to 40% of Hasbro's staff in the last year is just gone. They announced that they're working with McFarlane Toys. Okay, so it looks like, and you know, we talked about this before. It looks like Hasbro doesn't want to be a toy company. It looks like they want to outsource more and more. Now, to start with McFarlane, they're just going to do action figures and comic book packs like they've done with DC. But that's probably just to test the waters, because Hasbro's already licensing a bunch of its properties out to Basic Fun. Like if you look at, and we talked about this before, it's weird. Basic Fun is doing like all the classic vintage My Little Ponies. They're doing the Tonka stuff. They're doing Care Bears. They're doing all this Light Brights, all the stuff that Hasbro, 10 or 20 years ago would have done themselves. They're just outsourcing it to companies that actually want to make toys. Lincoln Logs.
Speak and Spell.
Speak and Spell. This is all Hasbro stuff. Viewmaster. These are all Hasbro brands. And they're just outsourcing it. I like Christmas Care Bear is pretty cool.
Oh, it's cute.
I didn't know they had a Christmas
I mean,
Care Bear.
get Christmas Care Bear.
There's a denim Grumpy Bear. That's pretty cool. But you know what I'm saying? Like it's weird to me that Hasbro's not making this stuff themselves. But then you look at what's going on at Ollie's, where this stuff is just dying, rotting, and it's very clear that they don't want to have a bunch of surplus stuff. Let somebody else take the risk, right? So let's talk about this. Let's talk about what this could mean going forward. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. You get a woohoo if you do.
Woohoo!
And not a lot of woohoos. We said there are lots of boohoos because Geeky is packing up, furiously packing up as many boxes of books as she can. And,
There was like 200, almost 200 went out today.
This is what 200 2-packs of graphic novels looks like. Yeah, there it is. And there's a lot more that's been shipped out. But yeah, our second chance campaign, the first wave is going out. So we're going to reopen the campaign for another month because we've had a lot of people ask us if they can still get a hold of previously on Clownfish TV and Crimson Wren. And we do have some books left. If you want them, you have a month to get them. They're in stock.
Or if we sell out first, because I know that previously on Clownfish TV, we don't have a whole lot of those.
No, we were kind of, we're using a different printer. So we did kind of a smaller run of that just to make sure that everything was gonna go well with that, because Crimson Wren was late because the printer had issues. It's a long story. I'm not going to get into it here. But speaking of issues, Hasbro's got
lots of issues.
Lots of issues. Yeah, they cut 1,100 jobs. They're shutting down their Providence office. It just, everything's crumbling. And now they're working with McFarlane Toys. So I have a theory. I think that eventually Hasbro wants to transition into being like a rights holder, and that they're just going to outsource the majority of their stuff to companies that actually want to make toys. Because again, they don't have to take the risk. They can outsource to Basic Fun or McFarlane or whoever, and they can make the toys, and then they can deal with Ollie's. Because right now,
they can deal with making sure they sell.
Yeah, pretty much. But they're going to produce them probably in smaller quantities. And a company like McFarlane, I don't think it's public.
What I'm afraid is going to happen, though, is like with McFarlane stuff, is that they're going to be way more expensive, as it is. Because one of the reasons Hasbro, I think, failed was because they've been putting out stuff lately that is cheaper, looks like shit, but they're charging way more for it. Like, their prices are ridiculous. I think that's probably part of the reason why they aren't doing well. And I have to wonder if they're doing smaller batches, are the price is going to be higher, and it might be nicer, but if they're going to be higher, they're still not going to sell a lot of toys.
Well, Basic Fun, like their G1 My Little Ponies are what, like $20 a piece?
Yeah, they're expensive, and I don't think they're that much. I think they're 15. But
they used to be 5. But that was
but I mean, but they're really they're done really well. But that's not McFarlane.
Right. McFarlane stuff is a little more expensive. Now, the weird thing about that, though, is McFarlane was doing the Superpowers collection figures, and almost immediately at Walmart, they were being cleared out. Like, I mean, they were pretty reasonably priced. I thought for the size of them, they were $10 figures or $10 or $12. And then, but I saw Darkseid being cleared. Darkseid and Green Lantern, especially, were being cleared out for like $2.99, $3.99. I love those figures. I wish they did something. They don't have action features like the original ones, but I was kind of like, I can't, because they don't even have action features on those figures. I'm like, how can McFarlane do Transformers? And the answer is they're just doing action figures. So far, they're doing,
but is Hasbro still going to do the ones that transform?
for now, probably.
Because if you just go to the robots, people aren't going to want them. That
No.
defeats the point of Transformers.
They're basically action masters. That was like the end. When Transformers died in the 80s, the end of the line was Action Masters, where they just got to the point where they're like, you know what? We don't give a shit. They're not going to transform. We're going to make Transformers that don't transform because it's too expensive to make Transformers that transform. So they're just like, they're just action figures now. They're basically just G.I. Joe figures. But that sounds like what they're going to do.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to transform my wallet into open anymore either. You know?
Exactly,
It's like-
right? Wallet closed. Yeah, so they're doing Page Punchers, which they've done with DC already, and it's basically a 3 or 4 inch action figure with a comic book. But this is how it starts, because they said that they're going to work with Power Rangers, they're going to work with Dungeons and Dragons, G.I. Joe. To start, they're going to be G.I. Joe and Transformers characters. They're going to be a 3 inch.
They're smaller than reaction figures.
Yeah, they're slightly smaller than reaction figures, and they're going to come with a comic book. So I don't know if it's like the new Skybound series or McFarlane's doing the comics.
I'm sorry, this doesn't sound like it's an improvement.
It doesn't sound like.
Sorry, I'm just being honest.
I think I think they're testing the waters to see what they can do first. I think they're going to test and see if they, because I could totally see McFarlane just taking over the like the G.I. Joe classifieds figures or something like that, you know, doing
as long as they were
that.
like not 3 inches.
They would be the bigger figures.
I like the idea of the little comics again, because when we were kids, they used to put the comics and stuff, and I like that. So
well, these
I'm
are
not
full
against
size.
that.
They're full size comics.
Yeah,
I've seen the DC
it.
ones. Yeah, they're pretty cool. But
I'm not against that. 'Cause I think the comic element's fun, but then their toys, the toys are too small. I think that they're kind of sound like they're cheaping out the toys.
I think
You
it's
get a comic.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like the reverse, because it used to be like the toy was the feature attraction, right? And then you get the little mini comic with it. Now it's like, well, what if we make the figures mini and the comics big? What happens then?
Here's a refreshing idea. Why don't we just make toys that people actually want that are good? And that, you know, have a fitting price point. So we can make Transformers that transform, but are, you know, reasonably priced and actually, you know, don't look like shit. We can make D&D character figures that you don't hide in a box that you can't see because of missing pieces.
It's for the environment. It's like you can recycle plastic, bitch.
That's like when, what was the one, the Santa Claus the movie, and then they were hiding like nails and stuff and dolls and that.
Oh,
and
yeah,
hiding
yeah.
stuff in there because people know what was in it.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's like that. It's like if you bought toys at IKEA.
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much. Okay, so this is what Todd McFarlane said. He said, Page Punchers is an exciting program for us because it gets comic books into people's hands. So that's what this is about, getting comics into people. So the comic book is the main attraction, and the figure is a bonus.
Given that it comes from comics, that makes sense.
Yes. So I will give him props for that, because where else are you going to find like full-size single issues of comics at Walmart in a place where people are actually going to see them and not buried under the sports cards or whatever in that back aisle they have. Parents enjoy them because they encourage reading, and collectors like them because they provide unique and interesting character stories with articulated figures, plus a full comic book in each Page Puncher item. We offer incredible value with the brand. They're actually not that expensive. I mean, I'll give them that. They're not.
Yeah, but they're also tiny.
They are very tiny. So they said that he'd love if action figure licenses allowed him to do just one of every major character other companies have the rights to. This deal gets him closer. G.I. Joe and G.I. Joe makes sense. Transformers, G.I. Joe makes sense, but apparently Power Rangers and D&D are...
Yeah, but those are said they might be doing 7 inches for those.
Yeah.
Trust me, 7 inches is better than 3. If a guy tells you otherwise, they're lying.
It depends. It depends on what we're talking about. But yeah, so I don't know. It is interesting though, because look, I think this is the beginning. This is kind of how it started with DC too. They kind of started out small, and now he's basically doing all the DC stuff. And I can totally see Hasbro in the financial situation they're in right now, just being like, you know what? We can't even afford to make toys anymore. Todd, you want to make our action figures? You make our action figures. Super 7,
I don't
do you
understand.
want to
Why
make them?
is the guy still a CEO over there?
I don't know. I think Chris Cox needs to go. I mean,
You put a dick in, and this is what happens. I don't know what you get screwed. I don't
you
know
put a dick in charge of Hasbro, and the whole company gets fucked.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm like, I don't know what you were
right
expecting.
before Christmas, they fired a bunch of people right before the holidays. You know, I mean, I get that sometimes you can't see it coming, but in this case, they totally saw it come. God, there's so many jokes, but you know what I'm saying?
did.
Like they knew that this was going to happen. You can't tell me you go to Ollie's and see piles and piles and piles of unsold Hasbro crap. They didn't see this happen. Now, you don't see a lot of like Super 7 stuff or McFarlane stuff occasionally, but not very much because it is produced in smaller batches than what Hasbro does. And Hasbro's got investors they got to answer to, so they got just more. Private companies, they don't have to do that. You know, as long as they're self-sustaining, and honestly, these are a much better bet for Todd McFarlane than Steven Universe. They did the Steven Universe toys. Mm-hmm. Those things were on clearance within like a week.
It wasn't that quick, but yeah.
It was quick. They sat there for months.
Back to the basic fun thing. I will say that the My Little Ponies are nice.
Yeah, they are. And they came out with the the Celestial Ponies.
They did finally get the Celestial Ponies. I got those, but I have a lot of I don't have all of them, but I have a lot of the G1s, and they're actually that's fun.
That's cute.
They're actually really cute.
Yeah,
I like them quite a bit.
So anyway, we're gonna wrap this up.
Yes.
Okay, so please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. We'll talk later.
Bye.